Import and export service. See, whenever we have large volume of data to be handled, huge data, 1 TB, 2 TB, 4 TBs, that volume of data when we want to transfer. Obviously, it's not just the read write cost, it's the cost of the internet bandwidth also which will matter at times. And also it is going to take huge amount of time if from my local machine I'm trying to use AZ copy and upload the content into Azure, or if I want to bring content of 1 TB in size from Azure to my local machine, it's going to take huge amount of time. So in these kind of scenarios we use import export service of Azure. So what we do in import and export service, we'll first in import, basically we are trying to take the local content and move it into Azure. This is the workflow basically. First, the customer prepares the hard drive using import export client tool. There is import export client tool, which is this tool. You have to install this wa import export.exe, and you have to make your hard drive. You have to prepare your hard drive using this particular tool. That's the first step. Once you prepare your hard drive using that, you have to encrypt the complete disk. Basically, you'll have to do your disk encryption using BitLocker, because you're transporting disk from your on-premise to Azure data center. So what if somebody on the transit steals your data, starts reading that hard disk? To make that secure, you have to encrypt your disk. Then you have to create a import export job in Azure portal. You'll have to create in portal an import export job. So here, once you prepared your disk, this is the next thing you'll have to do. Import export job. So basic configuration, whether you want to do import to Azure or export from Azure. So let's say import to Azure. Some resource group. Job details. Now here there is something called as journal file. This journal file is supposed to be containing the directory structure as required on the destination machine. That means in your Azure storage, how should be the directory structure? That you'll have to mention in this particular journal file. Maybe now they have changed a bit, looks like. The journal file is automatically generated. You don't even have to write in Notepad. Earlier, long back when I did manually, I had to write in Notepad. But now looks like they have changed a bit. Using this import export tool itself, you can generate the journal file. You have to basically include the drives which you want and the BitLocker key. For encryption, some key will be used. That key, all other information will be created as an output of this import export tool. That journal file you should mention it here. Once you upload it, all that will be listed here. Then import destination, you have to configure your storage account and the container and stuff, whatever storage account you want to use. And finally click on OK. I don't have the journal file. Once it completes that, the next step is you have to also specify your return address. Basically you are sending a disk, right? That will come back to you again. So those addresses we'll have to specify here. So back here now. So first step is create the disk, use import export tool, generate a journal file, create a service in Azure portal, import service, import export service, mention the journal file. Once the service is created, manually you have to transport the hard drive to the data center. You have to send it through some courier. They will generate a label actually. That label you'll have to copy and paste it on your disk. The carrier delivers the hard disk to the data center. Once it goes to the data center will attach that disk to their storage. Transferring of data will happen. Once the transfer is completed, the hard disk will be sent back to you and you can again keep it the way you want it. So this is the complete import job. determines the data to be imported, number of drives you need, destination, blob location, all that you'll have to create. You have to use import export tool, encrypt the disk drive with BitLocker, create the import job in your target storage account, upload the journal file, provide the return address, ship the disk to the shipping provided during creation. I mean, this is standard, nothing special, but you have to remember this sequence. Certification exam will give you these steps in random and they will ask you to arrange them in sequence. What is the order in which you are supposed to put it? And exactly reverse is export job. The customer creates an import job using Azure portal. The customer ships the hard disk. The carrier delivers the hard disk, and on server there the data transfer will happen. And then the hard disk is encrypted there on the server of Azure, and the hard disk is returned back to the customer. So now they are actually using something called as Dropbox, data box. If you want to transfer data using disk drive supplied by Microsoft, you can use Azure Data Box Disk to import data into Azure. Microsoft ships up to 5 encrypted SSD drives with 40 GB total storage capacity per order. Your data center through your regional carrier. You can quickly configure disk, copy the data. I mean, this is an extra option. You can either use your own disk can be used, or you can ask for a data box from Microsoft. They will send you a data box. Basically, imagine now a box, solid box, which is very secure and ensures that your disks are very safe. So that data box they will send you. You put your data in the data box, ship it back to them, and they will copy the data from the disk into their storage. So if I'm not wrong, the import export cost is around $80 for one disk. One disk of data, if you want to copy, it will cost you around $80. That is the cost, which is comparatively much cheaper. And most importantly, what will happen is, because the disk has gone into their data center, we will not have the network traffic cost. We will not have the ingress cost. We will not have of course, write operations are still there. You are still going to be charged for the write operations because they are copying from the disk into the storage. Anything to write into the storage will be charged. So these points you have to keep in mind. So import export is a wonderful way of migrating your data from on-premise to Azure storage, or on need basis from Azure storage to on-premise. This particular thing cannot be practically demonstrated. On need basis, you'll have to simply follow this procedure and take one step at a time. And maybe you'll have to come to this particular documentation of Microsoft and read little more about it. That's all in this topic.